The Wire follows the drug trade of Baltimore, Maryland, those who perpetrate it and are part of the game, and those out to put a stop to it. One of the show's most iconic characters is Avon Barksdale, played by Wood Harris. Avon is one of the most powerful drug kingpins of Baltimore, full of swagger, running his organization with his second-in-command, Stringer Bell, who insulates Avon from the authorities. Stringer is known to the police. He is actively sought after by the likes of McNulty. But Avon? For a long time, he is on the record as a white middle-aged man, so little is known of him. On the streets, however, there is nothing elusive about Avon, whose reputation and word, as Brother Mozone put it, got him to where he was at the top. Everyone knows Avon Barksdale. He fought for the towers where the Barksdales now reign supreme, and his drug empire covers all of West Baltimore. Over the course of the first 3 seasons, Avon and Stringer differ in their philosophies to approaching the game. Stringer wants to evolve and treat it like a business, being a proponent of the New Day Co-op, an alliance between rival drug dealers where diplomacy is favoured over violence. Avon, however, is just a gangster, I suppose. He's old school, he fights for his corners, he fights for his street rep, his territory. He's a charismatic and natural leader who commands respect. The question as to who was right, Stringer or Avon, is a video for another day, so be sure to subscribe to keep up to date with future videos. But though he is stuck in his ways, Avon understands what Stringer cannot, that the game cannot be changed. It is what it is, and you either thrive within it or don't. He appears stubborn in Season 3 initially when he returns from prison and starts dropping bodies when things became so quiet without him. But Avon's goals are different to Stringer's. For him, it isn't so much about the money as it is the rep. And he knows characters like Marlo cannot be reasoned with, cannot be civilized, that he is simply not a beast that will be content with having just one piece of the pie. Avon knows his enemy. He understands what even his fellow OG Proposition Joe could not about Marlo. And had Avon not been betrayed by Stringer in Season 3, where Stringer gives Bunny Colvin information, as the Barksdales had the drop on Marlo, you would think they would have won the war. One of the most understated but remarkable traits of Avon is that he knows himself. He knows what he is and what he is good at. He is content. He understands that chasing success in the legitimate business world, playing those away games as he put it to Stringer, would lead to disaster, as that is a game he simply has no experience nor authority in. What a great line. What is your mentality when you are a sports person playing an away game? You are not surrounded by your home crowd. You are in unfamiliar territory, surrounded by people you don't know, out of your element, surrounded by strangers in hostile and strange land. Why even bother when you're at the top within your own game where you can play to your strengths? Avon also is firm in the idea of respecting the code of the streets, which is something that separates him from the next generation, people like Marlo. Stringer comes off as forward-thinking and progressive, with Avon stuck in the past, but it is Stringer who, for example, violates the Sunday truce, with Avon having to reprimand him. Avon understands the reality of the game they are in. That isn't to say he is some noble Robin Hood type individual. He is ruthless and will drop bodies as much as the next guy, and it was he who wanted Brandon put on display as a message to those who mess with him. But especially when compared to Marlo, he is shown to have a code and an element of integrity. Most of the murders Avon sanctions are people who are already in the game. He allows Cutty to retire immediately upon asking, at a time when the Barksdales needed soldiers. He gives Cutty money to set up a boxing gym for kids in the neighborhood. Can you imagine Marlo doing something like this? A man who had a security guard killed for simply talking back? Rather, if that scene between the security guard and Marlo took place with Avon instead, Avon would have probably respected the guard for standing up for himself, much like how he scolds the ref in the Season 1 basketball game for not being a man and standing up for himself. Avon has humanity in him and seems to be genuinely loved by his crew, who throw themselves at lengthy jail sentences, life in prison even, to keep him out. If the sentimental and family-loving Prop Joe is on one end of the spectrum, with his business-orientated mind and favouring of diplomacy and product over violence and territory, and Marlo is on the other side, with his insecure obsession with his name and being the king, then Avon is slap bang in the middle, ruthless but worthy of respect, the perfect kingpin, the original gangster. Anyway, Avon, as we know, is sent to prison at the end of season 1 as he incriminates himself on a hidden camera when he tells his nephew D'Angelo to pick up a package of drugs. He is charged with possession with intent to distribute, but incredibly, this is his first arrest, and it's a testament to how well insulated he was, but ultimately he gets only 7 years. He gets out early in season 3, partly due to tainting a prison guard's drug supply which causes a number of deaths, and he then comes forward as a quote-unquote witness. He then engages in a street war with the Stanfields after being outraged over how much territory Stringer has lost while he was away. Stringer eventually sees Avon as a liability and a blockage to the new ways, so gives information to the cops so that Avon is caught in a compromising situation, surrounded by armed men. However, when the police make the raid, one of Avon's men, who may or may not have a law degree, takes the fall, claiming the weapons as his own, protecting Avon. Avon is sent back to jail where he remains for the rest of the series. But how long was he actually in jail for on his second term? McNulty tells Avon that as he's violated parole, he'll do every day of his remaining 7 years at least, which would come to around 5 years. Cedric Daniels then mentions trying to get Avon on a conspiracy to murder, taking Avon's case federal and getting him 10 to life, no parole. So how long did he actually do? The remainder on his 7 or 10 to life? Well, I have to mention straight away, seeing as though you probably clicked on this video to find out, that I actually don't know. And that's because they never actually tell us in The Wire. And that, to be honest, is actually more interesting than someone over the course of the show mentioning how many years Avon went down for. The reason I say that is that David Simon, the creator of The Wire, has mentioned that the writers would put things in place in the show, little pieces of plot buried in the show, which they could expand on if need be. We see numerous examples of small things that happen in earlier seasons which create a butterfly effect, and one such example that was not followed through was the Gangster Cheese actually being the father of Randy, one of the school kids, a fact which is never mentioned on the show but something that was going to be delved into if HBO gave The Wire more episodes for season 5. So going back to Avon, I wonder if they left it intentionally vague as to how many years he got, just in case they had the idea somewhere down the line to use Avon again in an expanded role. Maybe have him released from prison in some future season somewhere down the line, rather than write themselves into a corner. Let's say Avon's story was done and they had no use for him. If they said he was given 5 years, and we were given season 6, 7 and 8 of The Wire, they would then have to find a use for Avon, who would be released and surely return to the game. In the same way, if they said he went down for life with no parole, but then found they wanted to use the character again, they would be stuck there as well. So the answer as to how many years did Avon get is we don't know, and it's worth speculating that maybe it's because they wanted to keep Avon there on the shelf for future use, a bit like how he popped up out of nowhere in season 5. So I guess it's open to debate and interpretation. You could argue that Daniel's line was the wise way of telling us Avon was going away for a long time and he was essentially out of the picture. There's a few things that suggest Avon was doing a long stretch. You could point to his complete absence throughout the entire duration of season 4, as he was still in the show in season 2 even when he was in prison. And his demeanour in season 5, where he mentions being an authority figure, as if he's settled in and mentally accepted he's here for life, unlike his previous philosophy of only doing 2 days, the day you go in and the day you go out. There are huge implications about his jail sentence. It has a massive bearing on his scene with Marlo in season 5. As I talked about in more detail in my video Why Did Avon Help Marlo? If Avon was gone away for life, he is someone who has the mental fortitude to accept that the game is the game and not to be resentful. In this way, when Marlo needs the connect, Avon is happy to give it to him, as at least Marlo is West Side and can take out Avon's nemesis Prop Joe. Plus, Avon will get 100k and a chance to flex on Marlo. a flash of the old days for him when he was the king. Also, if Avon is happy to sell the Connect to Marlo, it might imply he wasn't coming home for a long time. But if Avon was only doing the remainder of his 7 years, then, as I said in the other video, I think you could actually make a case that Avon was setting Marlo up for failure, knowing he was too volatile to maintain a stable relationship with the Greeks, would be killed, and create a vacuum for Avon to step into and resume his days as King of Westside with his former enforcer Slim Charles under him, who has the Connect at the end of the show. So the length of Avon's sentence actually has massive bearings on the streets of Westside and what will happen after Season 5. When Stringer talks to Bunny, he essentially says he wants Avon to do his remaining bit and not to go away for decades, and Bunny says he'll try but can't guarantee anything. It's also mentioned before the raid on the warehouse that Avon's men will claim ownership of the guns, meaning it's practically impossible to nab Avon and get him a long sentence. So there's really no solid piece of evidence that swings the argument one way or another. According to Wikipedia, Avon did his remaining years and was given an additional 25 years for possession of firearms and conspiracy to murder. But this information is not backed up by the show itself, and the reference for this bit of information links to a HBO page that no longer exists. If you want my opinion, I want to say Avon only had a few years and soon he would be back in the streets, but I think most clues point to an elongated stretch in prison, suggesting Avon is pretty much out of the picture. Perhaps the most crucial evidence for this, in addition to everything already mentioned, is that Avon is one of the only prominent surviving characters who does not appear in the final montage in Season 5. It's like the show has long since accepted that Avon is no longer in the game. He's an authority figure in prison now. He has Weebay doing life, and Weebay is shown to be talking to Chris Partlow, which could imply he also now works under Avon, who rules the joint. If Avon did only have a few years left, it's interesting to speculate what he would have done after he got out. Would he rejoin the game? Would he be able to? Would Slim Charles give Avon the crown? But that's a video for another day. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Subscribe to the channel and thanks for watching. Before we finish, I just want to thank my patrons Andre Millington, Nicholas Curtis and Daniel P, and also my channel members Rikers, Michael Awatwi and Damien Irving.